tourism. And
Tourism has been going on in the Smokies as early as the 1830s. Long before logging or the national park, they came for the waters. But tourists during the logging era supported the national park due to the devastation of the land.
I know there are places that really depend on logging for income, but logging destroys the land. But look at this. I love the pictures. I mean, it's fun to read this stuff too, but you're just looking back in time. Like that was just a moment to those guys.
I wonder if the people in the pictures knew how important that moment would be to future generations.
As usual, I can't show you every little thing. I think it'd be 3 hours long.
Then we enter the other part of the museum.
And in the next room, a guy forever reaching for that thing. Train wrecks.
He's got a hat like yours.
He does. Boiler of Shea Number 4 in Rough Creek, 1914.
Train wrecks were all the devastating you would expect. I can only imagine the terror.
Wreck of Number 4, Rough Creek, 1914. The boiler exploded on Shea Number 4 sometime in the spring of 1914, above the mouth of Rough Creek. Fireman Sam McClanahan was fatally burned, but engineer Walter Hall survived. The boiler and firebox were torn from the frame, but it was repaired and served for another 10 years. Wow. Wreck of Number 9.
Just imagine that locomotive sitting out front, careening off the tracks and into the woods. Terrifying.
In March of 1914, Shea Number 9 wrecked at the mouth of Rough Creek, which enters the east prong just above Fish Camp Forks. Cause of the wreck is not known, but it must have been dramatic because the photos show the boiler and frame separated from the cab. It was headed downstream with a load of logs, which were strewn along the right-of-way.
And unfortunately, train wrecks seem to have been all too common. It's romanticized today, but it was hot, dangerous work.
Caboose wreck above Elkmont, 1917. On July 13, 1917, a caboose left the rails and crashed upside down in the river. Apparently, the caboose was a runaway that either had brake failure or was accidentally uncoupled from a train. The wreck killed J.N. Baggett and Please Myers and Earl Dockery.
Okay, read that one.
Daddy Bryson wreck. The most notable wreck on the Little River was undoubtedly the runaway of Shea Number 3 on June 30th, 1909. The engineer was Gordon A. Bryson, known as Daddy Bryson because his son, Bose, was also an engineer on the Little River. It was a rainy day and the rails were slick. The crew was anxious to finish because there was to be a dance that evening at Elkmont. It was getting late. They decided to double the load to save time. Instead of the normal train of 3 cars, Number 3 was attempting to bring 5 loaded log cars down Jake's Creek above Elkmont. Apparently, the sand reservoir, which provided traction on steep grades, was clogged. The train could not be controlled. It derailed on a sharp curve and rolled over into the ravine. Bryson was caught beneath the engine and instantly killed. Brakeman Charlie Jenkins jumped from the train but was pinned beneath a big log falling from one of the cars. He was pulled from the wreckage but died on the rescue train about the time it reached Townsend. Conductor Aaron Jones, fireman E.T. Hoot Foster, and log loader Robert Hedrick also jumped from the train, but they survived. Daddy Bryson was near 55 at his death and much beloved by the children along the line, whom he befriended with a wave from the cab. His passing was commemorated on a ballad by Bill Abbott, sung to the tune of Red Wing.
Some of these train engineers were the stuff of legend and completely worthy of the songs written about them.
Locomotives and rail cars.
Train locomotives, absolutely magnificent machines, which filled the imaginations of little boys all across the land. The romance, power, and might is legendary even to this day.
There's a whole exhibit on hobos.
Sweet.
Enter the hobo.
Where's the hobos?
Right here.
Sweet.
Hobos.
And there's a lot of information here.
They had an ethical code.
Wow, who knew?
And hobos had jobs. They weren't tramps or bumps.
So they would ride the rails looking for work up and down?
Yeah, so, like, they were respectable migrant workers who traveled in search of work. They were skilled and unskilled workers, and they traveled by hopping the train.
This is information I did not previously have.
The life of a hobo was difficult and dangerous, and they were also called bindle stiffs because they carried their belongings
The bindles.
on a bundle or a blanket. Many jobs held by hobos included railroad workers, farm work, loggers, bridge builders, structural steel workers on bridges, mule drivers, apple pickers, carpenters, cigar makers. They were not to be confused with tramps and bums because tramps roamed around, but they didn't work. They frequently had a gimmick, stole, or begged. Bums neither worked nor traveled. Hobos wanted to work.
Interesting. So hobo, tramp, and bum, three completely different things.
Things.
This is an education I did not expect to get on this trip.
That's fascinating.
And then they had like a convention
What?
in 1889, the National Hobo Convention in St. Louis, Missouri. And they had a code that they voted on. It's got 16 items. It's on Wikipedia. But like
Hobo Convention.
one of them is do not allow yourself to become stupid drunk and set a bad example for locals' treatment of other hobos. Like a lot of this is like act a certain way in town because there's another hobo coming behind you, so you don't want to leave a bad taste in that community's mouth.
Excuse me. I am so glad I have now heard about the Hobo Convention. That is the most awesome thing I have ever heard.
The code was voted on as a concrete set of laws to govern the nationwide hobo body.
Nationwide hobo body. Like it's a grand institution.
This ethical code was created by Tourist Union number 63 during its 1889 National Hobo Convention in St. Louis, Missouri.
Wow, that's amazing.
Number one, decide your own life. Don't let another person run or rule you. Number two, when in town, always respect the local law and officials and try to be a gentleman at all times.
Upright citizens.
Number three, don't take advantage of someone who's in a vulnerable situation, locals, or other hobos. Do not cause problems in a train yard because another hobo will be coming along who will also need passage through that train yard. So a lot of it's like, don't wear the community out, get what you need, move on. There's someone behind you coming. You don't want them to be sick of hobos.
Right. I just can't believe there was a hobo convention.
Because they're workers. They're not
I
tramps
know.
or bums.
No, I
There's
get
not a
that.
bum convention.
That's not, that we know of.
Yeah, we would have to go to the bum museum again.
I want to see that museum.
That is just phenomenal. Hey, look, lanterns.
Possibly wielded by hobos all across the nation.
Hobo Convention. Log loaders, this is what we saw outside. Here's one that's not all rusty and derelict.
The one out front is rumored to have been used in the construction of the Panama Canal.
I'm probably going to be doing a lot of zooming in post. Yeah, look, that's sitting out there. That's what it looked like. They could actually turn and swivel. That's pretty neat. But I gotta say, yeah, like, I love trains. We got a thing about trains. Always had a thing about trains. But I'm not a fan of logging. Just not a fan of logging.
I mean, Where it depends. If it's a farm that's set up for logging, like you grow the trees and
Well,
then you're gonna replace
yeah.
the trees. I mean, you need paper. You need stuff that logs
You
provide.
do. But like all this stuff is just like the mountains. When you look at the mountains and how beautiful the forests are.
Yeah, nobody should be logging there.
No.
I just don't want anyone who's a logger to watch this and be like, oh my gosh, they're so ignorant about logging. It's like, I know there's other kinds of logging that isn't like destroying nature.
There was our
We're not the Lorax, right? Like,
We're not tree huggers. Or whatever the proper name for that is right now.
yeah, there's a Dr. Seuss book called The Lorax, which is all about like how loggers are terrible. And loggers are really mad about that book. It's like a 50-page children's book against logging.
Oh. Without like important.
Yeah, without the counterpoint.
There's so much information here.
Life in the logging camps. Unlike the logging camps of the Pacific Northwest, life in the logging operations of the Southern Appalachians centered around family. Rather than single men in boarding houses, most of the men who worked in Fish Camp, Tremont, Meigs Creek, Walker Valley, Elkmont, Thunderhead Prong, and El Dorado brought their entire families to live with them. Despite the temporary nature of the camps, they established strong community ties through school, church, and recreational activities. As a result, the lumber camps were not rollicking boom towns. As much as they could, residents recreated homes not unlike the small farming communities from which most of them came.
Also upright citizens.
Log trains in the gorge. To haul log trains from Elkmont to Townsend, the Baldwin Locomotive Company in 1908 delivered a number 126, a 2442 articulated locomotive. It was hoped that this configuration with two sets of driving wheels tracking separately would provide sufficient power while negotiating the tight curves of the gorge. But number 126 proved unable to handle the track in the gorge and was returned to Baldwin. The next year, Baldwin delivered a redesigned version of the 2442, number 148, with smaller drivers placed closer together, which performed admirably in the gorge. In fact, number 148 pulled most of the log trains from Elkmont to Townsend and later from Tremont to Townsend, usually one round trip per day, pulling empties to Elkmont and bringing loads to the mill. Log train below Elkmont? So what do you think of this museum?
It's lovely. I really learned a lot. I learned about the hobos and like the different types of like logging, I guess. Like how it's different, you know, because you're up in the mountains and you need like, it's harder like to build the train tracks, whatever. So, yeah, you always learn something, even in the smallest museum. This is very well done.
It's very well done. Like I always say, I can't show you everything because it's just take forever to shoot it, take forever to edit it, and take forever to watch it. But I hope that this, this is...
It's really just nice to know that it's here. Like if you're in Townsend, you're like, should I see that? Or if you're in any little town and you see a little free museum, don't think, oh, that's probably not anything because it's not, part of the Smithsonian or whatever. There's something in there that you can learn.
Every museum is valuable.
You know what I learned about? Hobo Convention! And it's going to go to black and that's the end of the show.